Have you ever spoken perfect English but felt like a ghost? Every word technically correct, every sentence grammatically flawless, but somehow, when you opened your mouth, nothing true came out. That was David Chen's life, and he didn't even know it until the morning his daughter asked him a question that broke something open inside his chest. It was February in Toronto, the kind of cold that makes your breath visible, that turns the city into a black and white photograph. David was walking Maya to school, her small hand warm inside his gloved one. She looked up at the pale winter sky and asked, "Daddy, why is the sky so white today?" David opened his mouth. He knew the answer. Ice crystals, light diffusion, cloud density. But when he looked down at his daughter's curious face, waiting, trusting, he realized something terrifying. He didn't know how to answer her in a way that mattered. "It's complicated, sweetie," he finally said. Maya nodded, but her eyes dimmed slightly. She had wanted wonder. He had given her a wall. That night, David sat in his home office staring at his hands. For the first time in 45 years, he felt the weight of every word he'd never truly said. He was fluent in English, born in Canada, engineering degree, 2 decades in tech. But somehow, he had learned to speak a language that never touched anyone. He whispered to the empty room, "What's wrong with me?" 3 days later, his colleague Priya walked into the office kitchen with something different about her. A peace in her eyes David hadn't seen before. "You look happy," he said. Priya smiled. "I just finished my morning lesson." "Lesson?" "English lesson. From a teacher in the Philippines." David blinked. "You were born here. You have a master's degree." Priya leaned against the counter. "I know. But 6 months ago, I realized I could use English perfectly, but I couldn't feel it. My teacher Ate Rosa asked me to describe my happiest memory. When I told her about making samosas with my grandmother, she stopped me and said, 'Now tell me again, Priya. But this time let me taste the cumin. Let me feel your grandmother's hands.'" Priya's voice caught. "David, I realized I'd never really spoken English. I'd just been reporting information." That conversation haunted David like a song he couldn't stop humming. That evening, he typed into Google, "Filipino English Teachers Canada." What appeared seemed impossible forums with thousands of members. Engineers, doctors, lawyers, all native English speakers, taking lessons from tutors in Manila, Cebu, Davao 1. Comment stopped him cold. "My tutor from Cebu taught me that words aren't tools, they're bridges. And bridges need care, not just skill." Another read, "I spent 40 years teaching English." Then a Filipino student spoke with her heart, not just her mouth. "I realized I'd been teaching students to speak correctly but never truly." At 11:47 p.m., David clicked book trial lesson with a teacher named Kuya Ramon from Davao. He barely slept. The Zoom call connected at 7 a.m. David's coffee was too hot, his hair uncombed, his heart strangely nervous. The screen flickered. There was Ramon. Silver hair at his temples, simple blue polo, warm light behind him, a wooden crucifix on the wall. "Good morning, Sir David," Ramon said, his voice gentle but present. There was a pause. Ramon smiled, not a polite smile, but the smile of someone who had time. "Before we begin, sir, may I ask you something?" "Of course." Ramon leaned forward slightly. "How is your heart today?" David froze. "My... what?" "Your heart, Poe. Not how you feel. Not if you're happy or sad. But how is your heart? Is it heavy? Is it light? Is it confused?" No one had ever asked him that. Not his therapist. Not his wife. Not in 45 years. I don't know," he whispered. Ramon nodded as if David had just said something profound. "Then that, Sir David, is exactly where we will start. Because in the Philippines, we believe you cannot speak from the heart until you first know what your heart is saying." For the next hour, they didn't touch grammar. Ramon asked David to talk about his daughter. David started clinically. "She's 7, she's bright, she does well in school." Ramon smiled gently. Sir, those are facts. Facts are for reports. Your daughter is not a report. Try again. Close your eyes. Picture her face. What do you feel? David closed his eyes. He saw Maya's face when he came home. The way she ran to him, arms wide, shouting, "Daddy," like he was the best thing that had ever happened. His throat tightened. She makes everything make sense, he whispered. Beautiful, Ramon said softly. Now say it to her. Pretend she's right here. David opened his eyes, tears blurring his screen. Maya, you make everything make sense. You're the reason I wake up. Ramon was quiet. Then he said, Now that is English, Sir David. Not because the grammar is correct, but because it is true. When the call ended, David sat in silence, staring at the blank screen. Something had shifted, like a door inside him had been unlocked. Over the following weeks, David began to change. He started journaling, something Ramon suggested, not in perfect sentences, but honest ones. Today I told Maya I loved her before school. I've said it before, but today I meant it differently, like the words were heavier. His wife Jennifer noticed. You've been different lately, she said while doing dishes together. Different how? More here. Like you're actually in the room with us now. David hadn't told her about the lessons. He wasn't sure how to explain without sounding crazy. I'm trying to be more present, he said quietly. Jennifer looked at him, really looked, and her eyes softened. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. In his sessions, Ramon asked questions that felt like prayers. Tell me about a time you were afraid, Sir David. Not what you were afraid of, but what fear felt like in your body. One day, David asked Ramon why he taught this way. Ramon was quiet, watching something outside his window. Then he said, My mother was a Sunday school teacher. She taught us that every word we say is a prayer, whether we mean it to be or not. She said, if you speak with love, your words become blessings. If you speak with anger, they become curses. He turned to David. That's why I teach English the way I do. Words have power not because of grammar, but because of intention. If I can help someone speak with kind intention, then maybe I'm adding a little more light to the world. David wiped tears from his face. You've changed my life, Ramon. Ramon smiled. No, sir. You changed your own life. I just reminded you that you had a heart worth listening to. David couldn't keep it to himself anymore. At a dinner party, he mentioned taking English lessons from the Philippines. Everyone laughed until his friend Sarah, who had been struggling with postpartum depression, leaned forward. What do you mean? She asked quietly. 2 weeks later, Sarah called David, crying. My teacher Ate Marie asked me to describe my baby, not with adjectives, but with prayers, David. I haven't prayed in 10 years. But I tried. And I found words I didn't know I had. Within months, David's entire circle had Filipino teachers. His 80-year-old neighbor Frank started writing letters to his late wife. A teenager named Aisha learned that mistakes are just courage, finding its voice. Everyone said the same thing. They don't just teach English, they teach you how to be human. It was late April when David said something that surprised even himself. Ramon, if I came to the Philippines, could I meet you? Ramon's face lit up like sunrise. Sir David, you would honor me. You would honor my family. Yes. Please. 2 months later, David stood in Ninoy Aquino International Airport in Manila, his heart pounding. The moment the doors opened, he was hit by the heat, thick, wet, alive. And immediately, something else. Warmth. Not the temperature, the people. A security guard smiled. Welcome to the Philippines, sir. First time? David nodded, dazed. You'll love it here. We're a noisy country, but we're happy. An elderly woman offered him water. You look tired, Hijo. Drink. A family waved at him for no reason, except that he existed. David felt something crack open inside him. In Canada, people avoided eye contact at airports. Here, everyone seemed connected by invisible threads of kindness. The connecting flight to Davao descended over lush green mountains, rivers that curved like calligraphy, ocean glittering under afternoon sun. It looked like the world before it got tired. Ramon was waiting at the airport, holding a handmade sign. "Welcome, Sir David," decorated with drawn stars. When David saw him, he stopped walking. The man he'd known only through a screen was real, shorter than he'd imagined, wearing a simple barong Tagalog eyes full of the same light that had traveled across oceans. They didn't speak. They just hugged. "I can't believe you came," Ramon said, voice shaking. "I can't believe I waited this long," David replied. They drove through Davao in a jeepney, those impossibly colorful vehicles that looked like moving rainbows. The city was loud, chaotic, alive. Vendors shouting, children laughing, music blaring from tiny stores. David felt overwhelmed, but not in a bad way. It was like his senses had been asleep his whole life. Ramon's home was small, tin roof, open windows. The air smelled like garlic and ginger and something sweet David couldn't name. Ramon's wife Linda greeted him by taking his hand and pressing it gently to her forehead, a gesture called mano po. "God bless you, Sir David," she whispered. "You are welcome in our home." David's throat tightened. He had never been welcomed like this. That evening, they sat on the porch as the sun melted into the horizon, turning the sky orange and pink and gold. Ramon brewed coffee, thick, sweet, strong, and they watched the neighborhood come alive. Children playing barefoot, neighbors calling across fences, someone singing, voice cracking but joyful. "It's loud here," David said, smiling. Ramon laughed. "Yes, Po. We're not a quiet people. But maybe that's because we have so much to say," David asked. "Why do Filipinos teach English this way?" Ramon watched the sky. "Sir David, for us, English is complicated. It came through colonization. It was forced on us. We could have hated it. But instead, we decided to make it ours, not by perfecting it, but by blessing it. We put our faith, our warmth, our malasakit into it. That's a Tagalog word. It means care that goes deeper than duty. So when we teach English, we're not trying to make you sound American. We're trying to make you sound kind." David felt tears on his face again. The next morning, Ramon took David to a small rural school. Wooden walls, tin roof, mismatched chairs. But the moment David stepped inside, he felt pure, uncomplicated joy. The children stood and shouted, "Good morning, Sir David!" Then they clapped and laughed. One little girl, maybe 8, stood to read aloud. Her accent was thick, her pronunciation imperfect, but her face glowed with pride. When she finished, the whole class erupted in applause. Not because she was perfect, because she was brave. David whispered to Ramon, "In Canada, we don't clap for courage anymore. We only clap for perfection." Ramon nodded sadly. "That's why your people are so tired, sir. Perfection is exhausting, but courage gives energy." One boy tugged at David's sleeve. "Sir, do you like the Philippines?" David knelt down. "I think the Philippines is teaching me how to live again." That night, Ramon's family held dinner for David. The table was covered. Adobo, pancit, lumpia, halo for dessert. Before eating, they all held hands. Ramon's mother, a tiny woman with silver hair, said a prayer. "Lord, thank you for bringing our brother David across the ocean. Bless him. Bless his family. Let him carry our love back to Canada, like seeds. Amen." David couldn't speak. He just squeezed the hands holding his ladder. "Under a sky thick with stars," David said. "I came to understand how you teach English. But I'm learning something bigger. I'm learning that language isn't about words. It's about connection. And connection is about love." Ramon's eyes glistened. "That's because it is, sir. Everything we do should be an act of love. Otherwise, why do it at all?" David looked up at the stars. "I don't want to leave." "Then take us with you," Ramon said gently. "Not in your suitcase, in your heart. Be a bridge, Sir David. That's the Filipino way." When David left, Ramon's mother gave him a wooden sign she'd carved. Teach with the heart, not just the tongue. When David returned to Toronto, Maya ran to him shouting, "Daddy!" He scooped her up, holding her like she was made of light. She pulled back, studying his face. "You look different. You look happier." "I think I found my voice," he said. Jennifer started lessons with Ade Rosa. Within a month, she told David, "Rosa is teaching me how to mean it." David shared his story everywhere. At first, people were skeptical. But David would smile and say, "I went to learn how to speak like I have a heart." Slowly, the laughter turned to curiosity. His boss enrolled with a teacher in Manila, his sister in Iloilo, Maya's teacher in Baguio. Within 6 months, his entire circle had Filipino English teachers. 1 year after David's first lesson, something extraordinary happened. A Toronto community center organized Meet Your Filipino Teachers, a celebration of connection. Over 300 Canadians registered. They flew in 20 Filipino teachers. David was there with Maya and Jennifer. When Ramon walked through the door, they embraced like brothers. "Sir David," Ramon said, voice breaking, "you look exactly like your heart." The room filled with tears and stories. One moment shattered everyone. An elderly woman named Helen approached a young teacher named Jane. "You taught me how to say, 'I love you' to my son. We hadn't spoken in 20 years last week. I called him. I said the words. He cried. He said, 'Mom, I've been waiting my whole life to hear that.'" Jane sobbed. "Ma'am, it was always in your heart. I just helped you find the door." The room erupted in applause. David stood on the small stage. He looked at Ramon and said, "A year ago, I thought I knew English. I had grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation. But I didn't know the most important thing. That language without love is just noise." Filipino teachers didn't teach us English. They taught us humanity. They taught us that every word is a bridge. Every sentence is a prayer. The applause was deafening. Today, over 4 million Canadians have taken lessons with Filipino English teachers. Schools have integrated the Filipino method, adding heart-centered communication to traditional grammar instruction. The movement has spread to Australia, the UK, Singapore, parts of the United States. Everywhere, the message is the same. Perfect English doesn't change hearts. Kind English does. David still meets with Ramon every week. Those conversations have become sacred, a space where he can be fully human. Last week, Maya asked again about the sky. It was winter, pale and almost white. David knelt down. "The sky is white today, because all the colors are hiding in the clouds, waiting for the right moment to come out. Just like the words in our hearts, sweetheart. Sometimes they're hidden. But when we're brave enough to let them out, they paint the whole world beautiful." Maya's eyes went wide. "That's the best answer you've ever given me, Daddy." And somewhere, thousands of miles away, Kuya Ramon was logging into his computer. He adjusted his headset, looked at the crucifix on his wall, and whispered, "Lord, let my words today be bridges. Let them carry hope, not just information. Let them remind someone they are loved. Amen." Then he pressed "Start Meeting" and greeted his new student with unmistakable Filipino warmth. "Good morning, my friend. How is your heart today?" Because that's what the Filipino way has always been. Not a method, not a curriculum, not a technique, but a reminder that when we speak, we aren't just transferring information. We're reaching across the terrifying distance between souls and saying, "I see you. I hear you. You matter." And in a world that's forgotten how to truly listen, that's the kind of English we desperately need. Not perfect English, kind English. The Filipino way isn't about perfect grammar, it's about perfect grace. And grace, unlike rules, can never be wrong.